Hello book lovers, and welcome back or welcome to Neckhead's Bookish Cafe. Today I'm here to give you my October reading wrap up. Alright guys, before we get into the reviews and stats for October, I wanted to quickly address the elephant in the room. The elephant being the Republican Party that has gone ahead and unfortunately won the US presidential election. It does look like we are going to have another 4 years of Trump. I obviously did not vote for him. I hope that is obvious. I want to just say that this will continue to be a safe space. I will continue to speak out against inequality and oppression, which I feel like we are going to see a decent increase in the next 4 years, which is really unfortunate. Even in the few days since the election has occurred, there have been some situations, some actions taken by members who voted for Trump that made it very clear that they are very happy that they can be very open with their hate now, but that will not be accepted on this channel. So if you have opinions that align with Trump, you can unsubscribe. I'm going to be honest, I do not want you as part of this community that I am building, so I am more than happy to see my subscriber count drop after this video and me saying that you're not welcome here. I know it might seem kind of weird for me to say this is a safe space and a welcoming space, but I truly believe that those who vote for Trump don't really care about safe spaces since they are so okay with them being taken away from people. So I don't really feel like I need to go ahead and provide one of those for you. You can find them elsewhere. So I usually try not to be overly political on this channel, but reading is political. It just is. It's something that a lot of people try to avoid in the book community, but I'm like, you can't avoid reading not being political, especially when what you read can impact your values so much and can display the kind of communities that you are openly supporting. So I just wanted to throw that out there. This will continue to be a safe place for queer people, immigrants, for people who have the ability to get pregnant. I support all of you, and I really hope that we can continue to stick together through these next 4 years. It's going to be a rough ride, and I'm not looking forward to it, and I'm definitely anxious about it, but we are just going to have to stay strong. It'll probably be a very exhausting 4 years, so I hope that we can all find some solace and comfort and support in each other during these difficult times. So I just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. I probably won't be talking about it too much on my channel. I will obviously still make my opinions on certain situations known. It's kind of hard to be quiet about that, especially when I have a platform to talk about it. But this is obviously not like a political channel. I'm not a political analyst or anything along those lines. I'm just a girl who's not happy that the United States decided to vote for a president who I think is going to make things worse for this country. Would be thoroughly surprised if we came out of these 4 years better than we went into them. So I'm not optimistic, and I feel like that is a reasonable thing. I don't feel like I have a reason to be optimistic, but I will be here on this channel reading books, escaping reality while simultaneously making sure that I'm reading books that are educating me about what is actually happening, because we definitely should be questioning what Trump and his party says and does every step of the way. So that is my little piece on the election. Bummer, to put it plainly. Disappointing. But moving on to less important things, I guess, we're gonna go ahead and jump into my October reading. October was a rough reading month, quantity-wise. Quality-wise, it was actually pretty good. I think, just barely starting to get out of a slump here, and we are in the second weekend of November. So I've been struggling for the last few weeks to really find the motivation to read, and my stats are definitely going to reflect that. Last month, I let you know that I was kind of changing up the way that I was going to do my wrap-ups. Now this month, I ended up not doing a mid-month check-in because I had read so few books at that point that it wasn't even worth it. So this wrap-up is obviously not going to look like last month's wrap-up. However, I will still be talking about books from least favorite to a favorite, instead of talking about them in the order of which I read them. But before we go into the reviews, let's go look at the stats. They're a little shocking. All right, guys, so in the month of October, I read a total of 4 books. Yep, I finished 4 books. I did DNF, temporarily DNF 1 book on top of that, but completed, it's a whopping 4, which is the lowest of this year and probably the lowest since I started this YouTube channel. And it wasn't even like they were long books, because the total number of pages I read was 898 pages. So I read less than 8,000 pages this month. Audiobook hour wise, I only listened to 1 novella as an audiobook, and that came to a whopping 3 hours of audiobook time. I did technically listen to a few hours of a nonfiction book that I did not finish, and I have no idea when I'm gonna finish it, because honestly, since I put that down, I have not picked up an audiobook. I'm just not in the mood for audiobooks. My brain is like repulsed by the idea of listening to an audiobook. So audiobook wise, you will probably continue to see low numbers when I do my November stats, and possibly even my December stats. We'll see when I get back in the mood for audiobooks. On the bright side, average rating wise, we did really well. Like I said, it was low quantity but high quality. The average rating ended up being a 4.38. So I rated 1 book 4 stars and the other 3 4.5 stars, and I obviously did not rate the DNF. So on the bright side, I enjoyed what I was reading, but somehow that didn't help me increase my desire to actually pick up a book. So let's go ahead and go into the reviews, starting with the temporary DNF. All right, guys, I emphasize the fact that this is a temporary DNF because this is an author that I have read 3 books from, and every single one of them I have given 5 stars. So this was a very disappointing development. And that is because I temporarily am DNFing Happy Place by Emily Henry. I picked this book for my punishment prompt, which was to read someone's least favorite book of 2023, and I can see why it made that list for this person and other people. I did see it on a lot of people's most disappointing and least favorite books of 2023. I only got 26 pages into this book. Now, I will say one of the reasons I'm temporarily DNFing this and not permanently DNFing it is because I have had beef with contemporary romance since like the month of July. Every single contemporary romance that I have picked up, I have DNF'd temporarily or permanently since that month. I don't know what's going on, but my ability to tolerate the stupidity that are the tropes that you can find in contemporary romance is at 0. I have 0 tolerance for it at this moment. I'm hoping that I get it back because I think contemporary romances can be a really fun time. I'm just like in a weird place in my reading right now, and it is unfortunately negatively impacting my ability to read one of my favorite authors. So essentially in this book, we are following Win, which is the name of Soul Eater from Lily Main's Monstrous series. Will this Win live up to the name? No, I can tell you from the first 26 pages, this man is trash. Like everything he did in the first 26 pages made me want to like punch him in the face. I was like, you are gonna have to get on your literal knees and grovel for me to forgive you for all your disgusting actions. And I know I'm probably overreacting, but like everything he did was like pissing me off. On top of that, we are also following Harriet, which, no offense to everyone out there named Harriet, I don't like that name. It's a giving old lady. And even worse, her friends call her Harry. If I were a woman, I would not want my friends calling me Harry. That's not like a unisex name. That's not Riley. That's not Alex. That's not Casey. Those are names that you can use for non-binary people, men, women, anyone. Harry is a straight up man name. So I was like, no way am I gonna read a book where everyone is calling this woman Harry. So right off the bat, the names didn't work for me, but that's me nitpicking. Let's get into like the actual plot of this book. So Harriet and Wynne were engaged. Going into this book, I honestly thought they were just dating and then they broke up. They were engaged. And they had been together for 8 years. And a few months before the start of this book, Wynne had called her and broke things off. Like, apparently within like a 5-minute phone call. No details, was just like, it's over. And Harriet had decided just like not to tell their friends, which I feel like, why? You know, I don't understand. Like, if you break up with your fiance, I know there's certain things you want to tell people like in person, and she was currently like living across the country from her friends, but why? That doesn't, like, I would never have such a life-changing event occur and just be like, you know what? I'm just not gonna tell my friends. And considering she's probably been communicating with them, straight up like lying to them about it. So she had kind of decided that she was gonna tell them on this trip that they're going to this beach house that they have been going to since they became friends in college. It's a very important beach house to them. A lot of important parts in their life had happened there, a lot of wonderful memories, and she is going to go there to absolutely ruin the mood by telling everyone that she has lost her fiance. I don't think those are her intentions, but like that's what she's doing. And when she arrives there, Wynne is there, and he's not supposed to be. Like, she and him kind of organized that they would take turns on who went on trips with their friends so that they wouldn't have to interact. So she was not expecting to see him there, and there he is, and her friends are like, surprise, we were able to convince him to come here because we had no idea that you guys were broken up, and we were talking with him and he didn't tell us that you guys broke up, and he also, I guess, decided not to contact you to warn you that he was gonna be here. Isn't this fun? Why did he not contact her? Like, did she have him blocked? Like, why was he not like, hey, just to let you know, they want us to be here together and I could not say no, so I'm gonna be here. Not that you're standing here in the doorway with your jaw on the floor and everyone's like, wow, why is she so surprised? Is your fiance here? So that was another dumb thing that occurred. Anyway, so she decides, you know, I should probably tell them. You know, I was planning on telling them anyway. He's here. It's going to be super awkward, so I'll just get it out in the air. This man, like, walks up to her and, like, physically restrains her. Like, yes, I'm exaggerating, but he, like, puts his arm around her to make it seem like he's like hugging her hello and stuff, but really he's like taking the opportunity to whisper in her ear to tell her to shut the hell up and not say anything. And I'm like, can you back up? Can you like literally not do that? That's not okay. But the reason he doesn't want her to say anything is because her friends have some news that unfortunately the beach house is being sold. It belongs to one of their fathers and he's selling it. So this is going to be their last time at the beach house, which is really sad. And that she decided that she and her partner are going to get married this week. And so our character Harriet is like, well, I guess I don't want to ruin the vibe and be like, oh, it's great that you're getting married, because I'm not. Yeah. And Then the friend says, one of the reasons I decided to get married, even though I spent my entire youth saying I would rather be thrown into an active volcano than get married, is because you and Win are just so happy after 8 years. And I was like, now's a really great time to tell them that no, you're not. But they didn't. They didn't say anything. So my thing is that this book is, the setup is just really dumb. So there's a few things that could happen here. Most likely in this book, they're gonna fall in love again. Obviously, they're gonna pretend they're still together and then they're gonna like rekindle their love and all that jazz. But even if they do, are they just never gonna tell their friends that they broke up? Or are they eventually gonna be like, we're back together because we were actually broken up and we just lied to your face? Yeah. Whoops, that's not gonna go well. And if they didn't get together, would they be like, yeah, we were broken up the whole time? Surprise! Or are they gonna be like, yeah, we like just now decided to break up like right after your wedding, which is totally a good omen. So the setup, it's so dumb. I just can't. I can't do it. And also Wynn said this line where he was like, yeah, Harriet always makes me feel like we just met, which all the friends took as like super romantic, you know, like they're still the honeymoon phase and everything. But really, I think the reason is like that he feels like she didn't value their relationship, that he always came second, that she never truly really opened up to him, which I'm assuming is going to be the beef that they have throughout this, because she's trying to become a doctor, which is a very difficult thing to do. So I guess she just like didn't give him enough time because she was busy like learning how to save lives or whatever. So yes, I will hopefully pick up this book again someday once I can tolerate contemporary romances again, but for now, I am just going to glare daggers at it for being so dumb. All right, guys, that was the longest review I've ever done in my entire life, but I was very pissed. So I had to do a rant about it. I guess it's a good thing I only have 4 books to talk about. So let's go ahead and talk about the one book that I gave 4 stars, and that is going to be Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I admit that giving this book 4 stars was a little bit disappointing. I was hoping it would be a 5-star read because I absolutely loved Camp Damascus, and this book has been getting quite a bit of hype, and there have been a few people that read quite a bit of thriller and horror who said this book was like genuinely scary. I didn't find it scary like at all, if I'm gonna be honest. There's never really any scenes where I was like creeped out, so that left me a little bit disappointed. This book is following a man who is a producer of a TV show. He's been producing for a while, writing and producing TV shows and movies for a while, and he is a queer man. And at the beginning of this book, he is approached by one of the executives, and they tell him that the board, the mysterious board that no one knows who's on it or anything, has looked at the algorithms, because AI and like algorithms are a pretty big part of the story. They essentially said that the algorithm said to make the most money off of his TV show, he needs to take his 2 female leads who he has been slowly developing a relationship between and either make them straight in the final season or allow them to have their moment, come out as queer, kiss, and then kill them. So those are his only options. So either he can have characters that are alive and straight or dead and gay. Essentially, he needs to bury his gays. And he is like, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. So as he is out here kind of battling with himself on what he should do, is his career essentially over now because he will probably get fired for doing this, he starts to see some of his characters from his past horror movies around the streets of Hollywood, and they seem to have the disturbing powers that they have in the movies. And all of a sudden, his life and the lives of those around him are very much in danger. It is a really fun concept, and there are definitely aspects of the story that I think are really well done. The horror aspect of it just isn't one of them. I felt like the direction of the story was relatively predictable. Throughout this whole story, I kind of knew what was behind the appearance of these monsters, and that made them less of a threat and made them a little bit less scary in my opinion. So while I definitely think that the stakes were pretty high at some points, I also think there was a lot of convenience to the plot as well. What I liked the best in the story, what I think Chuck Tingle did really well, and which definitely I thought was scarier than the monster portion of the story, was the flashbacks to our characters' past. So our character is LA out, which essentially means that if he goes back home, he goes back into the closet. And he has a lot of trauma from being a queer kid in a pretty conservative area of the country, and has experienced a lot of bad things when it came to people figuring out that he was queer in his childhood. And he uses those traumas to inspire the monsters of his horror movies. And so it's those flashbacks to the real people and the real events that inspired these horror movies and these monsters that I thought were really unsettling and really well written. You could tell that this child, 7, 10, 12 years old, felt a deep rooted fear and shame about who he was, and that was really sad and uncomfortable to read about, because no child should feel that way. And Chuck Tingle was really able to just bring those feelings to life and bring them off the page. And I absolutely loved that part of the story. So I would say I definitely enjoyed the flashbacks more than the present timeline. I did enjoy that he had a asexual, aromantic best friend. She definitely was a wonderful character to the story, and I think added a lot to it, even though she didn't play like the biggest part. I think that she did play a big enough part where you could tell that Chuck Tingle was making commentary about how often asexual and aromantic people are overlooked when it comes to the queer community. So I did enjoy the commentary on that, especially being an asexual person myself. So overall, I will continue to read Chuck Tingle's work. I definitely think that he knows what he's doing, but I think that he is a little bit better at building fear through the existence of homophobia than he is building fear through like actual monsters, because I feel like even in Camp Damascus, it was just the feeling of someone being trapped in an environment that is controlled by people who don't approve of queerness to be a lot scarier than the monsters that later became a threat to our character in Camp Damascus. So overall, a good read, definitely worth it, and glad I was able to get to it in October. All right, the next book, the first of my 4.5 star reads. Since they are all rated the same, I'm just gonna kind of talk about them in the order of which I read them. The first being the audiobook that I listened to, and that is going to be Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This was a novella, super short. I listened to it in like an hour and a half because the whole audiobook was only 3 hours long. The reason I decided to pick this up is because I have been wanting to give Stephen Graham Jones a second chance for quite a while. His book, Only Good Indians, was probably one of the scariest books I ever read, but also one of the most boring books. So I've kind of like shied away from reading his stuff because I was like, that was very scary at parts, but the majority of it was like a total snooze fest. But this book, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so fun. I was like laughing throughout it. I thought that it was kind of like a comedic horror situation. Going into this book, I actually thought that it would be more scary. But unlike with Chuck Tingle's book, where I was left disappointed, with this I was more pleasantly surprised by the direction that the author took with the story. Essentially, we are following our main character, who is a teenager, and he has a group of friends that used to play with this mannequin called Manny. And one day as they got older, they kind of put him in the corner of the garage and kind of forgot about him. And then one day he decides to use this mannequin to prank one of his friends who works at the movie theater. And this prank doesn't go the way our character expects, which causes him to believe that the mannequin has come to life and is seeking revenge on him and his friend group for abandoning him. And this story is just so ridiculous. I just so often was just like, this character is absolutely bonkers. They are just delusional. But other times I was like, wait, is there actually like a reality to what he is thinking? You know, sometimes you're like, no, Manny's not really alive. Our character's just taking bad situations that are occurring in his life and blaming it on this mannequin. But other times you're like, wait, like, is the mannequin actually alive and hunting him and his friends? So it was a really interesting story to read. I really loved the way that this story ended. I thought that the pacing was relatively well done. Sometimes it did in the middle drag a little bit, and so that's why I couldn't quite give it a 5-star. But overall, a really fun read. I highly suggest the audiobook if you're looking for just a quick, kind of creepy but also kind of humorous, just because of the ridiculousness of it all, story. I would definitely suggest checking this one out, and I will definitely be checking out more Stephen Graham Jones work in the future. All right, up next I finished God Killer by Hannah Canner. This book took me like 7-8 days to finish, despite being under 300 pages, just to let you know how slumpy I was. Despite that, I still gave it the 4.5 stars. I had a really good time with this book. I'm really glad I decided to pick it up. For a long time I thought it was like a romantasy story. That is not what this is. I'm really glad that I realized that I was wrong about what the story was and decided to pick it up. Essentially, we are following a woman who is a god killer. She had taken part in a war that was against the gods, and most of the gods are now dead. But the way that gods work is that they kind of grow out of the needs of humans, and humans always have needs, and so new gods are always starting to be born, and it's kind of her job to hunt down these newer gods and kill them before they get too strong. One day a young girl approaches her who has a god attached to her. Her and this god can like not separate. If they go too far away from each other, it causes a lot of pain, and our character is like, well, I can't really kill this god because it might kill this girl as well. So they are hoping that if they go and travel to the site of where some of the really big gods died and where some shrines of stronger gods still remain, that they can kind of set this god on a shrine, and that stronger god will go ahead and accept this little tiny god so that it separates the two, and then they could go on their merry way and they won't have to worry about that anymore. Along the way, they, however, come across a baker who we know, because we see his point of view, is actually a knight and is on a secret mission for the king who had originally slain all of the gods. And the two of them start to work together because they are both heading to this city of fallen gods. I really loved all of the characters in this story. I thought they were all really complex and likable yet unlikable at times. I really enjoyed the diversity in here. Our main character, the god killer, has a amputated leg that occurred when she was a child after her family was the victim of some fanatical behavior. Let's go ahead and put it that way. And she is also friends with a deaf woman and a woman who is using a wheelchair, and she herself is bisexual. And I'm not really sure about her male love interest. I honestly am getting bisexual vibes from him, just because he seemed to like kind of have a crush on his best friend, but maybe I mixed up the vibes there. I'm not really sure. But overall, there's a lot of queerness and disability or representation throughout this story that I really enjoyed. I thought that the pacing and the world building was really interesting. This is a very short book, but the author was able to cram so much world building in here without it feeling info dumpy or overwhelming, and was really easy for me to kind of digest and understand. So I'm really excited to hang out in this world a bit more. The ending of the story was not the most unexpected, I'm gonna be honest, but it does intrigue me to see what is going to happen in the second book. So really great writing, really great characters, really great world building, everything, plot, excellent. So this story kind of has everything you could want in a book, so I am really glad that I went ahead and picked up, and it is definitely worth the hype that everyone is giving it. And the final book that I read this month was Backdraft by Cole McCade, which is the 10th episode of the Criminal Intentions series. I am slowly but steadily making my way to the end of this series. Obviously, I gave this 4.5 stars, and I, as always, had a wonderful time with Malcolm and Sanjay, our homicide detectives of the Baltimore Police Department. This story follows the case of a police officer involved shooting. Essentially, two police officers had answered the call to a 911 call for medical emergency. So it wasn't even they were reporting a crime. Someone was saying, hey, my husband is having a seizure. Essentially, this was an older man who had issues with seizures and had fallen and hit his head. And his son was there performing a medical intervention in hopes of obviously saving his father. However, when it came time for the ambulance to actually show up, the son was gone, and there is an unusually large amount of blood on the father. And so it is starting to look like the police officers had shot the son. The police officers are saying that the son had been violent against them and that they had shot him in warning, but that he then fled the scene, and they are not sure where he is right now. But our characters are kind of looking into it to see if they had shot him and potentially removed the body as evidence. This obviously is a very complicated case for them because they themselves are part of the police force, and they already have a history of not being like down with doing whatever the police want to do and letting them get away with everything, which makes their fellow police officers not like them very much, even though they're doing what they should do, which is holding police officers responsible for the crimes that they are committing against citizens. So I really did enjoy the fact that Cole McCade put the story in here. I really do think it's important that this is an issue that is addressed within a series where we are following people that are part of the police force. It is obviously something that we are facing very often here in the United States. So I do think that he did a good job of handling all of this, both when it came to how they handled solving this crime, as well as the backlash that they were getting from their coworkers for actually trying to solve this case in the first place. It wasn't even like they were getting backlash because they were like, yeah, they're guilty. It was just like, you're even trying to solve this case and trying to make these police officers look bad, and that makes you the enemy. So it was really showing just like what a bros club the police force can be, and just how detrimental that can be to people within the community that are looking to the police to protect them. So I really did enjoy this. I continued to enjoy the relationship building between our two characters. At the back of all of these books, the author will often have like questions that readers are asking and his answers to them, and I usually don't read them because I don't want them to like hint at anything, but I looked at just the first one and it just said like, the fuck is Sade doing? And he just put this little shruggy guy, because Sade in this book is just like, Sade is like a side character, but they are very important to Malcolm, and so he's constantly trying to be like, Sade, like, what are you doing? I feel like you're in a bad situation. Can you tell me what's going on? And Sade is like, nope, can't tell you anything. And I'm like, well, what is happening? And just like the direction that this is going, I'm wondering if Sade and this person that they are secretly involved with are going to be a big part of the second season of the story, but we will see. We will see. Definitely the way that this story ended had me at the edge of my seat to pick up the next book, but whatever. I am having a great time with the story. Yes, it's stressing me out, but according to the author, they will have a happily ever after. So I'm taking that and moving forward with peace in my heart. All right, guys, so those are all of the books that I read in the month of October. I definitely went pretty in depth about my feelings and maybe got a little bit rambly. My brain right now is just like, it's a little bit like scrambled eggs right now, so I apologize. But that being said, let's talk about what my least favorite and my favorite book of the month were. I feel like I don't want to say that Bury Your Gaze was my least favorite book, even though it's technically the lowest rated, but it was like, saying a 4-star was your least favorite book of the month. It's just like, However, I will say, I guess, because I predicted it to be 5 stars and it was only 4 stars, that it is only fair to say it was technically my least favorite aside from the book that I DNF'd. So least favorite, but still highly recommend that you check it out. As far as my favorite, I think I am gonna have to go with God Killer. This book really just had everything that I could want in a story. Why did I not give it 5 stars? I honestly think it was because of this like romance aspect that started to develop in it, and I was like, this doesn't feel 100% natural, and I don't really like that it's happening. So I do think that is why I couldn't rate it 5 stars. Luckily, that didn't really happen until the end of the story, so it didn't like taint the majority of this book. But best book for sure of this month. Let me know what your favorite and least favorite book of the month were. And as always, guys, thank you so much for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!